All right. You all asked and you all will receive. So here we are with the texture tutorial. First things first, this is my first YouTube upload, so if I sound like I don't have proper recording equipment, it's because I don't. Secondly, I'll kind of be going over my process of doing things, and that may or may not work for you, depending on, I guess, how you prefer to do things. But hopefully some of the things I will be going over will be useful tools. And lastly, I'm sure that I can learn a lot from you all, so if you have comments, please put them in the video or message me them on the Discord. That all being said, I'll be getting into it. I'm just kind of going to be wigging things, so bear with me. I guess first things first, Tydoku. If you really kind of look at things, there's not a lot going on as far as like colors and shading. Like normally in a texture, there's looking at like the dark areas, the light areas. There's maybe 5 colors going on. But you can do a lot with that. So for today, I'm going to be looking at these guys over here. Iron and Purpur. The raw iron, I might make it in another video. Or actually, no, we'll be doing that because I think it'll be more easy. The Purpur is another one that I think this was Berry Tyrannosaurus's texture that I just reskinned forever ago. And we might be making a new one of those another day. But actually, I don't know. Might as well do that one. It'll be better practice, I think. Before it, let's see what vanilla has in store for us. Because in my opinion, the first thing you want to do when you're making a texture is probably pick your palette. And vanilla is a good reference point to start from because they've already got things figured out in a sense that they already do some of the work for you because they've got professional people doing this that are getting paid very well to make these textures, I think. So we can kind of copy off them just a little. First things first, you want to look at what you have in store here. You've got a dark color here, you've got your highlights here, and it kind of does a gradient downwards. And that's how you kind of know where the light is coming from and where the shadows are, I guess, collecting. So for that, we're going to start by making a palette. And I've just got this open over here. We're just going to do a little 4x4 box of each color. So let's zoom in. Grab that color. That's going to be our highlight. Then you kind of want to look at what your base color is going to be. This is going to be your second highlight because it's not quite as dark. So I'm just going to drag that over. You can do this however you want. I just like organizing things in a little 4x4 squares. I guess it makes it easier to look at. So we've got our highlight, our secondary highlight slash accent, and then we're going to do our base color. And that's what this is. Just looking at about the 5 colors that are in here. And that's one thing that I really had to learn when making textures for Tydoku, is that there isn't a ton going on. It's not super complicated. It's just how, I guess, confidently you can use a very limited palette. Because when I first started, I was doing way too much shading, and everything looked just not great. Not bad, but it didn't fit. And keeping a consistent palette really helped with that. So there we go, we've got our 5 colors. This one, I'm going to draw up just to kind of mark it as our base color. Whoops, let's get rid of that. And that's what we'll start with when we go to make our Purpur block. But because this is the default coloration, we're going to play around with it a bit more. The easiest thing to do to change this to something we like is if you're using paint.net, you can come over here to adjustments, go to hue and saturation right here, and this is going to allow you to kind of muck with things. So let's try a more saturated color. See, you can kind of see things starting to shift. Maybe. So that's more into the red tones. This is more into the blue tones. For Tydoku, a lot of our colors are a little bit more staid. We don't have very many warm colors. So if you're editing out of like the default texture pack, like I am, taking your colors from it, you'll want to take things into the blue tones, but not a ton. So we'll do it about 10. And then because there is a little bit of a dark theme going on, we'll also, let's take it a little bit darker too. And even if you're not super happy with the colors you've picked off the beginning, you think you might change them later, a good thing to do is if you're making a lot of blocks, like say when I did our deep slate textures, like the deep slate bricks, tiles, cracked, chiseled, all those, I actually made one block, but it was a lot lighter than I wanted it to be. But I just kept going with the palette, keeping everything consistent. And when I finished, I made those adjustments. And that way, it wasn't like I was having to do each one and there was some variance. It all stayed consistent. And I can show you what that looked like. Those were over here. You can see, even though they were done differently, you don't see very much changes in the coloration, especially right there. This had more shadows, so it does look a little bit darker, or it could just be where it's placed on the... You can see it better there. So let's make a texture for the Purpur block. I start by a 32 by 32. One thing that helps is if you have a computer that can do touchscreen, especially if you have a stylus, that helps a lot. But you can also use a mouse. So I'm going to fill that in with our base color. Looking at it now, I don't love the way that looks, but we can always edit it. So let's figure out how we want to lay this guy out. Let's take our, I guess, dark color. I'm going to set it to a 1 brush width, just 1 pixel. And let's start from the bottom up. I kind of came up with a rough idea of how I want this to look. Like, kind of 2 slats, top and bottom. That's everything. So let's figure out how big we want the slats. Let's say 3 pixels. That seems about right. Take that up. And this grid tool, it helps so much to measure out things, because you can see down here where I've got my cursor, it tells you how big the selected box you just made is. So really easy way to keep things consistent. I'm going to pick that up, box, drag it across, fill it, boom. The same thing up here, except I'm going to skip a line. Instead of doing 3 up, I'm going to do 3 down. Make sure we got it. Yes, we do. Now I'm going to draw across. Stylus out. Let's go do. The nice thing about this is because your hand is a little bit shaky, even if you're pretty steady, you get these little dark areas going in, like right there. And that's one thing. But now that I know where that is, I'm going to fill this back in. Kind of keeping a vague idea of where it is. I'm going to go back over where that is. Just kind of intentionally shaking my hand a little bit. That way you're going to get these little squiggles, which that's a good thing. It makes it look like there's something going on there and that it's not just this flat line. And because when these textures are joined on top of each other, are going to be this bottom line will, I guess, be being shared by the two in the stack. So we're also just going to run our stylus along the top of here, making some of those little lines. And that gives the effect of kind of a shadow. And how, if you're doing like a brick block, how you want to divide it up, that can be just really arbitrary. The important thing is to make it kind of look like it makes sense in a way. And I can elaborate more on that in a minute. So let's say we want that to be a section. Let's make that into a section right there. And see, just by having a little bit of shakiness, it makes that nice little shadow there. So learn to use that to your benefit, because agonizing over making everything really smooth, yeah, you can, but it's really just going to kind of frustrate you in the middle. I mean, in the end. So I guess learn to get along with it. So I'll make that there, make that there, and let's do one in the middle. Boom, boom. I'm gonna round that off a little bit right there. There, there, there. Do that one too. So one thing is that Doku, or Tydoku, Gyrodoku, does kind of have like this classic, I guess, kind of JRPG feel to it. And what's nice about that is you can do very simplistic textures and repeat them, I guess. Let's do a line there. And I'll take that up by 6. Again, I'm just kind of arbitrarily doing things here. And let's do it differently from that. Yeah, unfortunately, you're going to be getting a lot of my stream of consciousness in here, so I guess apologies in advance. Taking our dark light again, let's draw across here. And insofar, I've only used 2 colors, a base color and our dark color. And looking at that, I don't like it. It's going to be just 3 bars, so let's go back to what I was doing beforehand. Or we're going to go off of here, leaving kind of a bigger brick pathway in the middle. Boom. Oh no, that was way too thick. And boom. As far as drawing the textures themselves or coming up with them, I don't really have any better tips aside from, I guess, just do what your eye seems to think is good. If you look at something and you look at it and you look at it and it just doesn't seem right, that's because it's a very good chance that something might not be. Or maybe you've just looked at it too long and you're kind of seeing things. Either way, at least if you've been in the Discord with me, you know I post things a lot. And that's mainly because I'm trying to get a second opinion. I've looked at it too long, so I don't know if what I'm seeing is just me going bonkers or if there really is a problem. So that's when it's always good to get other people to look at your work. Maybe this one can just kind of be an extra squiggly line. I'm going to do that there. Boom, boom, boom. And normally you don't want to do lines that are going to carry up. So let's place the lines for this one kind of in the middle of these bricks. So it looks like they've actually kind of been laid out in a way that would be like make sense structurally. So we're going to do those. And we're going to do those. And because I'm paranoid, I'm going to pop over and make sure that we're still recording. Yeah, we still are. Cool. All right. So we've got this now. Let's add a little bit there. I'm going to save this. Purpur. Tydoku. And you can work in layers. I prefer not to because you've got to do a lot of switching back and forth, and to me, it's just kind of a pain. But if you want to do layers, like do all your line work on a different layer and then merge them together and be able to edit them independently, that is also fine. I just like the simplicity of kind of being able to mash things together as I go. So now I think, and I'm just going to pop over and reference my deep slate bricks. But we got our highlights. Kind of, oh shoot, what the hell was that? I don't know. Got our highlights. Okay, noted. I cannot zoom in without my thing freaking out. We got our highlights underneath kind of a dark area. And then in between, there's kind of some like rough texturing. And I'm going to emulate that over here on the Purpur blocks because that might not be how bricks look in, I guess, real life. But for the purposes of like this texture pack that kind of has a fantasy vibe to it, it works, I think. I don't know why, but like the shiny bricks, I guess it does something. My eye doesn't reject it. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. We're going to grab our shadow color, or our secondary dark light. And we're just going to pencil this in, following along our contour lines. And what I'm going to do is when all is said and done is I'm going to jack around with the colors on this. I'm going to probably make there be more contrast between the shades. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down what I do, because that way if we want to make more of these textures, we can keep the same palette and we can just apply those changes when we're done. And that's what I was saying earlier with my original like deep slate and like black stone blocks, is even if you're not necessarily satisfied with the beginning palette, so long as you use the consistent colors, you can come back and mess with them later and it still look uniform. So all I'm doing now is I'm just adding some shading underneath these blocks. And just because of that, the area that was all the uniform, I guess, background color, the base color, is starting to almost look like a highlight. And that's intentional. You want, by the time you're done with your, I guess, lines and your shading, you want your base color to look like it's kind of jumping out. And that's good because it's supposed to be the dominant color in the piece. Another little tip is that if you're making terrain blocks and you notice yourself really paying attention to the terrain blocks, that might be a sign to go back and look at them, because you shouldn't really be noticing your terrain blocks. If they're drawing a lot of attention to themselves, they need to be worked on because they're supposed to just kind of be background. They need to look good, but if they seem off, I'm sure you catch what I'm trying to say. All right. Now we kind of want to plan this out. Let's add our highlights in there. We can have a little fun with this. Drag that down. And I create like a little swirly motion. I'm using my main highlights for this one. Drag that. Boom. For these, you can do differently. I'm just going to fill them in with just that corner. And I'll just do that right there. A little bit different, just break things up. A little bit of messiness can be to your benefit. And one thing is you never really want to leave a line right there at the edge. You want to drag it into the next panel. So when these are side by side, it looks like it's continuing on. Do that. And I don't want too many to be too samey. So for this one, I'm going to do that, a different direction on it. And just kind of I'd take this all the way down. There's just a little bit of difference there. Here, I'm just kind of going to shade that there. Fortunately, there's not a ton I can tell you aside from it kind of needs to be just intuitive of this looks right, this doesn't look right. You gotta, on the front end of things, you gotta be willing to just, I guess, keep what works, scrap what doesn't. And I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna carry it because it's gonna be a much bigger line. So it needs to have a little bit of dominance there. Same thing going this way. I'm gonna do a little bit of a and that's good because it just looks different from what we've got in the other cells. For my secondary color, I'm gonna grab this kind of, that guy there, because that's our main highlight. Secondary highlight, base color, accent slash secondary dark, main dark slash dark white. And with this guy, we can come in there, give that a little bit of some extra. And I guess these are Purpur blocks today, kind of need to be a little alien looking. So doing some things that might not look quite right with the shading can be okay. And once I get the main stuff in, normally when I come back and do and sort kind of refining drawings, I just kind of start adding random pixels. A really good thing to do is if you've got empty space like this, you can take, I'm going to color sample my base color. And I'm going to take it over here. And I'm going to bump it by 1. I just did, so that's what we had. I'm going to bump it down by 1. Color it in there just so we have a little bit of like a color sample. And maybe for this one, I'll make it a little bit more off to the shading, and let's just see how it looks with that. Now I'm going to switch over to my pencil, so we're not doing any blending now, we're just doing a straight up pixel. And I'm going to, is that too noticeable? Yeah, that's too noticeable. We're going to try that again. We're going to undo that, fill that back in. So you can just hardly see it, but I've made a slightly darker shade of the purple and just drawn a line there. And doing this, it kind of looks like hatching, like something that's just kind of scratched up the bricks. And if you look really close, I've actually done this on a lot of my stone textures because it makes it look like there's just been some wear on the surface and it's not like this smooth little bit in there. It's like that. There. We're going to do some there. But mainly like these bigger areas where you've just got one color kind of taking up the whole thing. That's where you want some of these little alternate color lines. And because this is such a big thing right here, I'm going to color sample it. And I'm going to raise the color by a little bit. Add some more highlight to the highlight. Just boom. And no, that's too much. Take that out. Blend it down a bit. And for this, putting away my stylus now, I am not happy with the colors, I'll be honest. But we can fix that. So we're going to go into here. Damn. Okay, well, let's reset this. So it remembered the values we used originally on the color palette. So let's just set this straight. So that's what we had. Let's darken it. So we're just going to click that down. Let's mess with saturation. I like that. So we took it down by 15. And let's blue it up a bit. I like that better too. All right. And now we're starting to get somewhere. And when you do that, you'll want to take notes of what you did so you can apply it uniformly to the other textures you also made of that palette. So now let's bump up the contrast like I said I was going to do. Doing that makes it a little too dark. So let's take that down to like 10. Normally intervals of 5 are a nice happy medium. So we're going to lighten this up a little more. I said lighten it up, not darken it. Jeez. Too much. And that looks better to me. So we're going to keep that. And now we're just going to correct some little issues we see. Like that. I want that to be one color. I want that to be a little bit darker. There. And I'm happier with that in game. So let's save it as Purpur block. Yes, I would like to override that because that was the default. Saving that. Now it's over here. So let's take that guy. Oh no, all my files. You're going to steal my super secret information. Let's go into texture packs. There we are. I'm just opening up the texture pack and I'm just going to copy paste that into our blocks folder. That way we should be able to see it in game. Did you copy? Oh, helps if I do the right one. There we go. So let's get one last look at our Purpur block before it goes away forever, hopefully. So that's the original. So let's search it out. And now we wait. And that looks better to me. I'm happier with that than what I had before. All right. Let's see. I'll probably make a part 2 if you guys want to see more. Other than that, I guess just some general tips and tricks. It's okay to use other things as your inspiration when doing texture packs, especially if there's something that just works. Even here you can see that meshed well, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, doing things that work. Berry Tyrannosaurus made this kelp texture, and when I was doing my dripstone, I was at a loss for what to do. But I was looking at this, I noticed it's got these, I guess, little lines across. And that gave me the idea for the dripstone, because it's kind of supposed to be like limestone. So I thought maybe like these little drippy lines kind of work their way down and flow down the surface worked. So it's okay to get inspiration from other things, and if you can spin it in a new way, I guess power to you. There's no real limit on what you can do, and there's no real proper way to do things. It's just a matter of, I guess, how convincing you can make your own, how well you can wing it, really. And like for this, If I do another video, I'll come back and I'll do the raw iron. But what we'll do instead for that is, rather than color paletting off the default iron, we'll be color paletting off our existing iron ore textures. So that way they'll look in the same vein. That wasn't supposed to be a mineral joke. But anyway, they'll look, consistent. All right. Hopefully I've covered enough. If you guys have any questions, post it in the Discord, DM me, or just comment on wherever this video ends up. And I will do what I can to get back with that. Otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed, and that's it for today.